All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
All last week, kept hearing a word whispered across Washington and GOP circles, that of my own home state of Texas. Texas might save us, they thought, after the state filed suit in federal court on behalf of the Trump campaign, challenging the results of the 2020 election and seeking to get the results overturned at the Supreme Court. Ted Cruz was even set to make arguments before the court if they took it. But luckily, we were spared that spectacle when the court rejected the Texas lawsuit and thus the last real chance at any Trump victory on Friday afternoon. And while I think we all knew that was going to happen, what was more remarkable than the rejection was, in fact, who rejected it. 7 justices of the court rejected Texas's suit on the grounds that they had no standing whatsoever under the Constitution to challenge the results, with only 2 saying they should have accepted it. Now, those 2 were Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. And it's not even that they agreed with the case, only that they have these really weird theories about jurisdiction and were willing to hear it out before they voted against it. And another way of reading the result is the 3 justices that Trump put on the U.S. Supreme Court just officially sealed his fate in the 2020 presidential election. All of this after years of talk and tears and hysteria over the idea that Trump's real aim was to stack the judiciary so he could enact a fascist coup, how Amy Coney Barrett's appointment was the final nail in the coffin of a plan to be a dictator for life. And if that was the plan, didn't work out so well, did it? Will any of the people who trumpeted this nonsense admit that they were wrong? No, absolutely not. The idea was so mainstream, it appeared on our opinion pages. It was everywhere. In fact, I'm willing to say it was an article of faith among the Democratic faithful that there was no question about why Barrett was really put on the court in the first place. This is just one of many Trump conspiracy theories which have turned out to be ludicrously false and which people pay no price for being wrong on. It's one of the many that have played out in recent days. Take Bill Barr, for example. Before this election, he was Donald Trump's personal henchman. Many liberals would have had us believe he was basically no different than a member of the Third Reich and that he was going to do everything in his power to steal the election for Trump. The idea was so widespread, it appeared on this show. In a bizarre moment, I'm not ever really going to forget, with Michael Moore, when he came on before the election to float the idea that Bill Barr was going to order U.S. Marshals to steal ballot boxes in Pennsylvania. Take a listen.
One thought is that the Justice Department is going to go send federal marshals. The FBI won't do it. They're going to send federal marshals into Pennsylvania on election day, on election night, and they're going to seize the ballot boxes, the hard drives, and they're going to take control of them and bring them back to D.C.
Michael,
because
we haven't seen any reporting or anything to that effect. We should be very careful about theories like this. I'll spare you the rest of that, as it was one of the most awkward 15 minutes of my life, but let's test the hypothesis. How did that work out? You know all the answer. Not only did none of that happen, Bill Barr opened an investigation into election fraud, then came out to tell the Associated Press after some investigation there wasn't any evidence of widespread voter fraud which could result in challenging the election results. So let's go even deeper. Another accusation by the mainstream media over and over again before the election was that Bill Barr was going to politicize investigations both on the Russia probe and possibly into Joe Biden himself. Well, that didn't happen. Literally the opposite happened. Barr adhered to long-standing Justice Department protocol and said that the Durham report, the investigation into the origins of the Russia investigation, and all the shenanigans going on there would not only not happen before the election, but would drag on into Biden's term. And as far as politicized investigations, it turns out he literally did the opposite. The Wall Street Journal reports that Barr actually found out about the current investigation into Hunter Biden's finances back in March and did everything in his power to keep the investigation secret so that it did not have an impact on the results of the election. This is what you want and what you should do when investigating something that is politically sensitive. But it's the exact opposite of what Loretta Lynch and James Comey did in 2016. Again, there will be no apologies from those who ginned up people and convinced them a coup was coming. They will just go about their business and ignore that right now, Bill Barr, the man who is supposedly going to steal the election, is being trashed by Trump himself throughout the weekend for not doing his bidding, so much so. That many news outlets are reporting that Trump may even fire Barr on his way out the door just to make the point of how upset he is at him. So there we go. Those are 3 conspiracies which were put forward just in the last month, which turned out to not only be completely false, but in each case, the opposite of the claim is what ended up transpiring. But those who push such conspiracy do not learn their lesson. They will continue to spew the irresponsible nonsense to millions and turn every election, every fight over the Supreme Court, every fight over an appointment into an existential fight between the battle between good and evil. Take a look around at our politics and you see the consequences of that. When you truly believe in your heart that your opponent is going to destroy your way of life and will do absolutely anything to make it happen, then you can resort to lies like this and take the populace with you. Lying in the face of fascism is forgivable, right? Well, I actually think it's unforgivable because it has damaged millions of Americans, gaslit them into a fundamentally false reality of what the other side is. And until we actually force these people to pay a price, nothing is going to fundamentally change. Crystal, I've really been grappling with this, both with Stop the Steal and I think on the liberal side with Russiagate, which is as I interact with, frankly, just older people and other people who watch a lot of cable and are more bought into these tribal kind of frameworks, they believe this stuff. Like you could see with Michael, he sincerely believed that the U.S. Marshals were going to steal the Pennsylvania ballot boxes. Not only did that not happen, Pennsylvania...
He told us a member of Congress had told him that.
Yeah, that's insane. Also, if a member of Congress is believing and peddling this type of stuff to liberal commentators to go on shows like this one and MSNBC and other and spew this type of crap, that is so dangerous. Because, again, you read in the last block, 82% of people on the Republican side do not believe the results of the election. Now, I don't know, polls and all caveats, etc. I think anecdotally, I can tell you that it's certainly up there. And on the Democratic side, I mean, Hillary Clinton and many of these others pushed for years the idea that Trump was an illegitimate president. She did concede, to be clear, she was not. She followed the illegitimacy, did not push it and start it. And there is a difference between that, I will give you.
Yeah.
However, these things still run deep. And it leads to the idea that you can just shamelessly lie and turn these fights into things that they are not about. And this is, I remember during the Amy Coney Barrett thing, the discourse was all 2 things, abortion and the election. Well, what is it actually really going to be about? Business, antitrust.
Yeah.
You see that FTC filing against Facebook? If you want to see big tech companies or any company get broke up, you think it's not going to go to the Supreme Court? And let me tell you how Amy Coney Barrett thinks about antitrust. I don't even think there was one word uttered outside of the small circles that we run in here that were actually in mainstream. That's what's going to impact your life, people.
Right. And it's not an accident that those aren't the issues that get discussed, because those actually, threaten the corporate donor class, threaten the money and power, the people who really run this country. And so it's not an accident that you have all these distractions instead of focusing on these real issues.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to be sympathetic to, the view that we have heard, the sort of extremist, most conspiratorial rhetoric around President Trump on the left, look, as he has from the beginning, if you want to see that, he gives you enough to work with, right? So before the election, refusing to say whether he's going to commit to a peaceful transition of power, never being willing to just say, if I lose, I'm going to leave. All that stuff feeds into, so for people who are on MSNBC and making a career out of painting Donald Trump as like this unique, evil, fascist, immediate threat, potential dictatorship on the way, he's going to cancel the election because of coronavirus, or he's going to postpone it, or there's going to be a military coup, or he's going to seize the ballot box, or whatever it was, you can seize on that comment and say, look, he's saying it outright. And also, as we said, and this is a pattern throughout his presidency, it's not like he didn't try and mess around.
No,
so again,
for sure.
But it's the Taibbi diagnosis has always been the most accurate one. Yeah, in theory, he doesn't have a moral issue with stealing the election, but 10 minutes after, when they're into the conversation about how exactly they're going to pull that off, he's going to grab a cheeseburger and go watch Fox News, or now at this point, I guess, Newsmax.
Yes.
Is what's, the reality of this guy is. And the fact that that hasn't been laid out accurately in the news media does a dramatic disservice to the country, because You have on the right, you've got the grandmas and the grandpas who are terrified that this election was stolen. They feel like this country is being taken from, they truly feel that and believe that, because the people they trust, right, the good guys in their view, the Republicans in their view, are saying, hey, this thing was illegitimate. And they're like, oh my God, the country, like, what is happening here? And by the same token, on the left, I mean, it was an article of faith within the Democratic Party that Russia was controlling Donald Trump's every action, and they must have some kind of extreme compromise on him for this to be happening. Is essentially a Manchurian candidate. Like, that has that same feeling of existential terror. Of like, oh my God, what is this person capable of? What is happening to this country? This is all a terrifying state of affairs. And so, yeah, look, again, Trump does everything to give you enough to work with if you want to believe that narrative. And so I have sympathy for the people who believed it. I do not have sympathy for the elites who are in a position of power, who have a responsibility to calm people down and stick to the facts, that they were so outlandish in all of this all the way.
I will never blame good-hearted, good-meaning people who have trust between people. You can't do that. You know, diminishing them or saying they're idiots or whatever, that is just, first of all, it's not going to get you anywhere.
Right.
And second, you got to try and understand where these people are coming from. Everybody, really. And that's exactly it. I mean, you don't pay, and the worst part is they don't pay a price from anybody, from their employers, from their fans. In many cases, they get richer. Yeah, they get much richer.
They get prime time
in order for
shows.
going. They get primetime shows. Yeah, go take a look at the new MSNBC lineup, and you could see that. It just is so terrible because I know and I'm witnessing the damage that this is doing to people's brains. And look, I mean, the defining issue from here on out, it is going to be stop the steal. I'm convinced of it. I'm 100% convinced that from now on, you cannot be a major Republican running for office and not even tacitly buy into stop the steal. And if you really want to be successful, make millions of dollars and all that stuff, it's exactly to lean into stuff like this. And in terms of the conversations that it is shutting down about the future and more, it's almost an exact mirror image of Russiagate on the left.
Yeah,
I think it's terrible for everybody.
I do too. And the last point that I think is really important, you know, as someone who comes from the left, to make sure that we continue to emphasize is Russiagate, what did it ultimately do? It was most effective. It wasn't effective at hurting Donald Trump.
No.
Didn't hurt Trump at all. Yeah. In fact, it probably helped him. What did it do, though? It crushed the left. I mean, they really effectively weaponized Russiagate and this idea of Trump as literal Hitler in order to crush the idea that, because of course you're like, we need healthcare for everyone, and they're like, that's nice, but we've got a fascist, so let's deal with that first. And if you've bought into that narrative, that's incredibly effective. And so that's the thing that I really need people on the left to sort of grapple with and understand, is that the over-the-top rhetoric about Donald Trump has been used most effectively to destroy the left. That's what it always really was about. I mean, it's been cynically weaponized in a very effective way. And as long as you continue to buy into the most extreme and conspiratorial rhetoric, it will continue to do and be used effectively to do exactly that.
Yeah, you could change that out for the new right. All right, I'm looking forward to your radar next, Crystal.